Okay, so officially welcome to this webinar. In this webinar, I'm going to be talking about how you can modify SharePoint lists, not modify the SharePoint list themselves, but SharePoint list forms. So the way you interact with a SharePoint list. Actually forms as well, lists or libraries. The way you interact with them is twofold. One, primarily visually, you're looking at their views and seeing exactly if you want to manipulate the actual view. You can do that through the browser or through SharePoint Designer. And then the other thing, which is the topic of this discussion here, is going to be how do you manipulate the actual forms that are there for the lists. So when you click on a contact list, for example, and you say, I want to add a new contact, and then this form pops up, right? What are the ways that you can manipulate that? Using SharePoint Designer, using InfoPath, pros and cons for each, things like that. I want to show you a few slides here first before we get started with that. Just a little bit about what we do and what we have to offer, and some quick facts about SharePoint also. So let me go through this. Now I'll go through a slide deck. Most of the webinar, if you already have been to the webinar, I know you know this already. For those of you who have not been in this webinar before, with me, you know that the webinars that we do as SharePoint videos, we try to focus as much as possible on demonstrating the functionality. So a bulk of it is going to be demonstrating to you how these things are done, talking about why we're doing certain things, and then taking your questions. I'll take a few during the presentation, but I'll take majority of them at the end. All right, let's get started here. So some quick SharePoint facts to be aware of. I think this is an amazing time when this product SharePoint has been the biggest news for Microsoft. Apart from Microsoft Office, apart from Microsoft Windows, which have been their bread and butter, SharePoint has taken off so much in the industry. And anyway, I just wanted to show you some facts about it. I think you already know, being here, that SharePoint is there and it's here to stay. It's not a fad anymore. When I started back in 2002, there was no uncertainty about it. But now we know that this is going to be the case. It's going to be here to stay. This is an important point, I think. Being in the industry for such a long time, for SharePoint specifically, training, speaking, writing, and mentoring people on SharePoint and seeing so many deployments, I see this every time, and it breaks my heart sometimes where a SharePoint deployment is such nicely designed, the taxonomy is so nice, the governance is so nice, but the communication to people and the help that people actually need to be able to use SharePoint is not there. And this is still the number one reason the SharePoint deployments fail. Tell me if I'm wrong, or if you have seen this validated with your own comments. It's so true. Lack of user adoption, number one reason SharePoint projects fail. Here's a potential solution that I would like to recommend. I know some of you have already been to SharePointVideos.com. Others, I hope that you try it out and see if it makes sense for you. So at SharePointVideos.com, our whole philosophy is to be able to provide on-demand help, for people. Not with people, not saying, okay, get somebody online to help you. That would be extremely difficult to do that. Maybe someday, but right now it's through videos. So you have a need, you watch the video specifically for that need, and you're done. Simple enough, right? Here's our site, SharePoint-videos.com. We currently, the video count is actually not correct here. This video count should be 240. That's what it is right now that we have. And it's all powerful solutions created without code. That's our motto. No code, but there's so much you can do without code. It's amazing. Here's just a very small sampling of some of the videos that we have online. Installing SharePoint 2007, 2010, customizing navigation, exporting list templates, site templates, visualizing data using chart web part, which is an amazing web part to be able to get information from Excel services, from your business connectivity services data, from lists, from libraries, really cool stuff. Creating external content types, getting to your BCS data. This is through SharePoint Designer. Creating list reusable and site workflows, extremely important stuff. And then exporting or reporting to data, I should say, using Data View Web Part. And then there's so much more that we have. So check us out. think you're going to like it. We offer single user licensing where basically you can sign up. It's $19.95 per month or it's $199.50 per year. And if it makes sense, you keep the subscription. If not, you can cancel anytime for that. And we also offer offline viewing of the videos through DVDs. So everything is on site. We have about 30 videos on the free videos tab which are completely free to watch. So check those out. The webinar that we're doing right now, this is also being recorded, so we'll be putting this one out. So it's going to be 31 videos, or actually even more than that. Anyway, so check it out and let us know if you have any feedback. Another thing that we offer is, as I mentioned before, corporate licensing. So not just for individuals, but if you are looking to provide the SharePoint videos to all your users, and they could be end-user videos, they could be videos on SharePoint Designer and InfoPath, on any kind of stuff that you're looking for in SharePoint, anything except from the actual programming side of things using Visual Studio, we should be able to help. So let us know. I'm going to quickly show you one more thing here before I get going. Let's see. So if you go to SharePoint-videos.com, in here there's this products. Under products you're going to see, come on, here we go, SharePoint users training. You can click on this, or you can click on this, train your SharePoint users. Check out what we have to offer, if it makes sense or not. If you have any questions, let us know. And here's the form that you can fill out to let us know, right? And then we can chat over phone or over email to see if this helps you or not. Okay. Please don't take this as too much marketing. This is really to help you, of course, at a reasonable price. So if this works out, let us know. Okay. So that's it for that. SharePointVideos.com. If you have any questions or thoughts, you can put it on the questions panel here, or send me an email, or fill out the form. Once again, as I was saying before, we're going to be talking about SharePoint 2010 list form modifications using SharePoint Designer and using InfoPath. And I'll show you both of these methods and show you what works, what doesn't work, limitations, the pros and cons of doing these things, and also the licensing requirements. You also need to be aware of that, especially for InfoPath, for example, there are some licensing requirements which will not let you do some of the cool stuff that you would wish to do, unfortunately. So I'll talk all about that. As I mentioned before, this is my name, Asif Rahmani. I'm a SharePoint Server MVP and a Microsoft Certified Trainer. I will not go through this slide completely, but here is what I do. I do training, consulting, writing, speaking. I do training with Critical Path Training. I do the videos, of course, we do it. We have a bunch of contractors who actually all make the videos on the SharePointVideos.com site. I've written a few books, been blessed to do that, and I go to conferences to speak at conferences. Love doing that. If anybody is coming to SharePoint Connections next week, I would love for you to come by and say, hey, how you doing? Because I love to meet people in person that I've already met virtually. So I'll be there next week presenting 4 sessions. And that's it. Let's move on. So a lot of demos. That's going to be the key over here today. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A panel. I'll try to get to them. Some of them throughout the presentation, most of them afterwards. And then the last point here is, I think, an important point that, I'm not going to be talking about the base functionality in SharePoint Designer and InfoPath. So we're just going to be digging in to some of this stuff. I'll try to point out whatever I can, but you can have a much better experience if you already have some of these concepts in mind. Okay. So, first thing first, with every SharePoint list and also SharePoint library in 2007 and in 2010, it comes with an actual form. Well, it comes with several forms depending on which list or library it is. These forms are pretty nice. This is right here. But reality is we need to customize some of these things depending on what our need is. Sometimes you probably want to hide some fields. Sometimes you probably want to show some fields that are not there to begin with. Maybe you want to change the display of it, change the font, change the background color for a field. Maybe you want to put your logo in the form. Maybe you want to just make it so it's a little bit different than the other site collection that's out there. So any kind of modifications you want to do, you can do. And this slide over here is saying that you can do it through SharePoint Designer. which is extremely true, which is works extremely well, to be honest. This functionality has been around since, actually it's been around since I believe the front page era, and front page 2003 let us do some of that stuff as well, and then became SharePoint Designer 2007, and that you could do with SharePoint 2007 stuff, and now in SharePoint Designer 2010 you could do that and a whole lot more. See, the good thing about SharePoint Designer is that it's completely free. Right, so SharePoint Designer 2010 is a completely free product, which is great to have. Now, with SharePoint Designer 2010, you can also modify forms on SharePoint Foundation and SharePoint Server. So there's no real licensing requirement here at all. SharePoint Foundation, which is completely free, download it, start using on your server. SharePoint Designer is completely free. So this method requires no licensing at all. And I'm going to show you how this works right now. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then we'll come back and talk about the InfoPath stuff. All right. Here's my environment. It should be coming onto your screen pretty soon. And I've made a site for us specifically called Webinar. Currently, nothing has really been done to this site, so this is a pretty blank site. It's a team site template. What I'm going to do is go to this list. That's the only change that I really made, these two lists over here. There's a list called Tasks, and I just labeled it as Tasks-modified using SharePoint Designer, SPD. And I'll show you out of the box exactly what the forms look like right now. And then we'll go ahead and modify them. All right? What you're looking at right now is a view. Right? That's just a view. And I'll click on Add New Item. Here's our form. Here's the form that comes out of the box. Now, how about we say create a text spec. That's a task. In progress, 20%. Assign to myself. Yep. Due date, we'll make the due date. Oops, look at that. I made the due date in the past, and it let me do it. That's one of the things I don't like about this task form over here, but it does let me assign a due date in the past, which is not possible. It shouldn't be possible. Okay, so let me go ahead and do it in the future. That's much better. Save. Let's add one more item here. And here I'm going to say, title is going to be, let's say, signing tech lead. This is not started, so 0%. This should be done by tomorrow. Okay, that's good. Assigned to nobody in this case. So I got some tasks over here, right? Let me show you the three forms. I already showed you the new item form. I'll show you the other two forms that you use currently to interact over here, right? All right. Second form is when you click on this, you click on the edit item up top. The second form comes up. Looks exactly like the first one, the new item form, but this is the edit form. The third form is going to be the view item form. You click on that, or you click on the item itself. This is an actual form as well, but this of course is a display, so everything is read-only. Makes sense. Okay, so how do I modify these forms? Well, first of all, let me go ahead and take the URL to the site, copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to need it when I start up SharePoint Designer and open up the site. So I'll go to Start. Here's SharePoint Designer. And just in case you need to know where it is, it's under SharePoint Designer 2010. SharePoint Designer 2007 used to be under Office. That's not the case anymore. Now there's a new group for it, SharePoint. Once again, SharePoint Designer 2010, free to download. There's actually two different versions of SharePoint Designer. Something good to point out. Oh man, I lost my zoom capability. Hang on a second. I like using this tool called Zoom It to be able to draw on the screen. So there we go. Okay, so there's two versions of SharePoint Designer, 32-bit and 64-bit. If you ask me, I would recommend highly that you use 32-bit right now. It will run on any OS, it's fine. 32-bit works great, works perfectly fine. I've not seen any limitations for it. 64-bit, yes, it can address more memory, but it still has some integration issues with other Office applications and with SharePoint, to be honest. And with if you use Internet Explorer 32-bit, which is the regular Internet Explorer, not 64-bit, then it won't tie in if you use 64-bit for SharePoint Designer. All right, so take my word for it. Use 32-bit for right now. You'll be happy. Okay, in SharePoint Designer, I'm going to click on Open Site. Put in what I have in my clipboard. Open. So it's going to open soon, hopefully, the webinar site. The way SharePoint Designer goes about is it actually uses web services, the backend, to be able to do that. Okay. Here we go, communicating with web service. Not too bad, pretty quick. All right, so here's the webinar site. When you go to lists and libraries, you see here I have the tasks modified using InfoPath and tasks modified using SPD. Let me go there. Here are all the views of my task list. And I won't be talking about that stuff right now, but it is extremely important stuff. And we, of course, have videos about how you can modify the views and stuff as well on SharePointVideos.com, so check those out if you wish. Currently, I'm going to go into this forms category here and see what we can do here. All right. I'm going to click on one of these things, for example, edit form.aspx. See what happens. What you're going to see here pretty soon is a very nicely optimized form that Microsoft has created for us. It's very nicely optimized and it's very difficult to use, meaning it's very difficult to modify, I should say. All right, let me get rid of this conditional formatting pane. All right. So this form is actually a list form web part, as it says right here. And this list form web part, it used to be all over the place in 2007. You don't see this as much anymore in 2010, but you do see it some places. The book that we wrote, it's called Beginning SharePoint Designer 2010 by Rocks Publications. You probably saw that on the slide that I was showing you earlier about me. In there, I kind of hack out and show exactly what list form web part does, what list view web part does, what data view web part does, and data form web part does. So there's a whole chapter in there that I wrote, and that might be helpful to you if you have that book. And we also have, of course, videos about all these things as well. So that might be helpful to you. But right now, all I want to say about it is the list form web part, try not to mess with it. Try to leave it the way it is right now. What you can do if you wanted to is you hit delete on your keyboard, and it's gone. So it works fine like that, and then you can start making your form over here. And making your form in this page over here is very simple. You go insert. You can say, yeah, I'm looking for making an edit form, right? Edit item form. And then I'm looking to make an edit item form for tasks. Right, and it's going to give you a form to start with some starting parameters, and then it gives you all these other parameters on the side, which you can use to create the combo boxes, the text boxes, whatever you want. And that's all great, but there are a few issues that you'll see, if not now, maybe later down the line, doing this way. First thing, there's no guarantee that this form, the edit form, will not be replaced in a future service pack. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is possible. See, the views and the forms that come out of the box are really owned by Microsoft. Microsoft developers are the ones who actually made this as part of the product. It is possible that they might get reset in a future release or in a future service pack, or maybe when you're upgrading, it might get released, it might get changed, right? Because this edit form.aspx in a task list, that's pretty normal stuff over here, and it's part of the template for the task list. So that's the first main thing. Second thing over here is that this form, the way it is right now, it has some remnants of the other web part, the list form web part in here. that you can clean up by going to the code view. So that is possible. You can go to the code view if you dare, and then you can go ahead and clean up some stuff here. But you know what? If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you will experience some issues. One of the issues that I've seen, for example, is it writes 2 records when you click on the Save button. Instead of 1, it writes 2 records. Second thing that I've seen is that it writes no records. And the third thing that I've seen is that you have to click on Save a couple of times. So there's a different variety of things that usually happen when you do it this way. So I would recommend don't do it this way. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Actually, let me, instead of close it, just go back one step here. It's going to say, do you want to save? I say, nope, don't save. And now we're back here. So instead of messing around with the forms already there, we're going to make a new one. New form. We're going to call this the edit task form. Edit task.aspx. And see here it tells you want to make a new item form, edit item form, or display item form. I chose the edit item form. Great. I'll also make this the default form for the selected type. Perfect. Here it is, right? Edit task.aspx. Wonderful. Now if I go into it, if this is your first time seeing this, you're going to see, you'll be surprised because it looks different. So what happened here, right? This is the form that we created. And if you look at this form here, look at this whole web part here, the top, it says this is a data form web part. It's not a list form web part anymore, it's a data form web part. So automatically when you make new forms, it makes them as data form web part instead of the list form web part, which is using old technology. So the list form web part that was already out there is using ASP.NET and using Camel collaborative application markup language stuff and it's inside. And it's okay, it works great, to be honest, it's very performant, but it doesn't let you really modify anything at the design time. So when I clicked on that form, it didn't let me do anything with it. Here I can click anywhere here. So let me click on something. Here we go. See, I'm clicking on different widgets over here, and it shows me that, hey, you want to change some stuff around? No problem. I will let you do that. What do you want to do? Okay, so you get a lot more granular control over how to manipulate this form. And I'm going to show you exactly what you can do. First of all, look up top. It says a data view tools up top. So that's how you know this is a data view. A data form web part, which is what the name here it is just a variation of a data view. So data form web part lets you, show this as a form, which is interactive, which can submit data. Data view would be, of course, just to read data. So what I want to do here is go to the top here and say, you know what, I want to add a picture of or a logo of my company here. So I'll go to Insert on top, click on Picture, and there's a picture, SP Videos, Insert. Always good to give it alternative text. This is good for accessibility standards. Here it is. Very easy to manipulate this picture now as I want to. Let's make it a little bit smaller. And then there's a picture tools toolbar at the top. So here I can say, make it less brightness, more brightness, contrast, etc. Great. Easy stuff, right? Now what I wish to do is I'm looking at this form and I say, oh, there's an attachment field here. You know what? I don't really want people to add attachments to this when they're editing the task. So I'm going to right-click, delete, and delete the row. Simple enough. Attachment row is gone. Okay, moving on. All right, the start date. Well, the start date is good, but what I really want is in the edit form. Now, in the new form, I want them to be able to edit, to add a start date, but when they're editing it, I don't want them to be able to change the start date. So what do? There are actually a couple of options that I have in order to make this one a display-only field and not make it editable. I'm going to show you both of these things. I'm going to right-click on here and say delete, and delete cells. So the start date is gone. How do I get it back now? Well, you see on the side over here, this is all the data that I have access to. All the data points, I should say, the data fields that I have access to for this data source, which happens to be the task list. So I'm going to click on start date and say insert selected fields as formatted date time. Perfect. And here I'm going to change the data format or date format to this. Don't show time. Done. Thursday, March 24th. Sounds good. Now the second thing you could have done, which goes into the actual tag properties. You can change the tag properties of the actual control, and I'll do that on the due date field. So I'm going to say here that due date field, same as the start date, you can't change it in editing. Right click, properties. Let me show you the properties here. See right here, there's a control mode, and right now it's set to edit. It's editable. I'm going to change that to display. All right. Looking at it in this form, you can't really see the actual difference here. That's one of the exceptions. Usually SharePoint Designer lets you see all the differences at design time. That's why it's a WYSIWYG tool. What you see is what you get, at design time. But this one, it doesn't let you see it. No problem. I'm just going to go ahead and save this thing. Let's see if I can. Oh, by the way, so when I'm saving it, it says, what do you want me to do with this picture, SharePoint videos? That picture right now is going to go into the site assets library, which is right here. So every team site has a site assets library. This one's going to automatically put that picture in site assets, which is exactly what I want. Click on OK. So let's check it out exactly what has happened. Go to the browser. Let me just refresh over here. Click on Add New Item. No changes, right? That's what is expected. Click on one of these items. Let's click on the first one actually, and then click on Edit Item. Here's my form. Very simple. No attachments there. Logo is there up top. Start date, due date, both read-only, and it shows this in this format. The other one is just regular format. Easy enough. So that's all the good stuff that you can do in SharePoint Designer. Let me also mention some other good stuff. We're moving stuff around. So if you want to move any of the fields, you can do that from one place to another. If you want to highlight some of the stuff, like I take all this stuff here, all the fields, and I say, you know what, let's change. I missed the first one. No problem. Let's go to home, make it bold, change the text to Tahoma probably. Let's do that. And then because this is a table, I can go to the table properties and change the shading. There we go. Okay. All good. That's exactly what I wanted. Now, another thing that you might want to do is, if you're familiar with conditional formatting, you might try to do that. You might say, you know what, let me do that. Let me go to the status field maybe and go to options here and say, let's conditionally format this field. Format the selection. If you've never used conditional formatting, the way it works is you define a criteria right here and you set the style that it's going to change to if the criteria is true. Simple enough. Here you can say, for example, if status equals not started, do something, right? So you click on set style, which gives you this modify style dialog, which is an extremely powerful dialog. And here I'm going to say, yeah, let's change the background color to something. Let's change to this one. Okay, that's what I wanted to happen. Click on OK. Now this is an expected error. Just wanted to show you that it says this particular form field, which is the Microsoft SharePoint Web Controls.form field. This is the object inside in the DLL. It says that it does not have a public property name style. So what that means that this is actually one of the limitations that we have. We cannot change the style property for this thing. Okay, so that you want to keep in mind. That's just one of the things. There are other things as well for SharePoint Designer that you cannot do. In addition, big thing that comes to mind, which I see as kind of a limitation of doing this stuff in SharePoint Designer, is if you're coming from a knowledge worker's perspective or an end user perspective, trying to learn all these things, sometimes, and I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes these things can be a little bit daunting. Tag properties, what is that? And this environment, the way it is for list form, it's kind of maybe a little bit kind of imposing. It's kind of difficult to work with. If you're coming from a developer environment, if you're coming as a developer and doing this stuff, this is, okay, yeah, I've done this millions of times. I'm doing the Visual Studio. This is easy stuff. So for end users or business users who maybe need to do this stuff, this might not be the best option. the best option for you is InfoPath, but I'm not saying that you can't do it here. Of course you can do it here. Just wanted to point that out. And yes, there are some limitations, some things that you can and cannot do. A good thing is there are other controls that will make, will let you do more stuff. Once again, it's going to require more complexity, like there are tools. I'm sure you're thinking that can you do validation or something? Yes, you can. Let me show view, task panes, show the toolbox. And see in the toolbox, which is right here, you have ASP.NET controls like the range validator, the regular expression validator, the required field validator. So what would happen is you put the required field validator, for example, let's say for description, right? You put that down here, and then you hook up the required field validator to this control, saying that go ahead and validate this control, and then you have it some text, some error text, and stuff like that. Now, if you're a developer, you hearing all these things, you're saying, oh yeah, I know how to do that. That's great, they can do that in here. If you're an end user or a power user and you've not done this kind of stuff before, this once again might be kind of like, all right, I don't know how to do that. I'm not sure if I want to do this here. So for all of us who want to do things a little bit easily, InfoPath is the way to go. So this is the stuff for SharePoint Designer. Let me now show you, switch back to my screen and show you the InfoPath stuff, all right? Okay, we're still going. In our slide deck, I have a few slides to talk about InfoPath, and then we'll jump in to show you the InfoPath stuff. Let me see if I can take any quick questions here. Once again, there's going to be some few quick questions. All right. Which edition of SharePoint are we working on this webinar? Foundation, Standard, or Enterprise? We're doing Enterprise per. Can SharePoint Designer 2007 and SharePoint Designer 2010 coexist on the same machine? Absolutely. In fact, I do have both of them. So I have SharePoint Designer here. I have 2007. I thought I had it over here. I know I do. SharePoint Designer. Here we go. See, SharePoint Designer 2007 and 2010. They're both there. So yes, you can have both of them there, and I just proved it to you. The key is try to get the same versions, like 32-bit and 32-bit, and then install Designer 2007 first and Designer 2010 afterwards. All right, Lynn? Can you download the presentation? Angelica, sorry, is asking. This presentation itself, the slides, there's only a few slides. So no, I'm not giving these slides out. They're not posting anywhere. But the main thing that you want, Angelica and everybody else, is going to be twofold, I think. One is, can I see it again? Can I see a video of it, or can I show it to somebody else? Absolutely. There's going to be a recording. You're going to see the recording, and I'll show you where exactly. When we're done, we'll be going ahead and putting the recording right here. So on free videos, if you go to the bottom, there's a webinars section right here, webinar recordings. Currently it says 2010 process technologies, and there's a bunch of webinars here. This webinar is going to show up here as well. It's going to be free, and this will show up in a couple of days. Okay. In addition, I do have something else for you guys, which I'm just going to go ahead and quickly mention here, and then we'll come back and I'll show you more. This I think is going to be extremely powerful for many of you. I don't know if you're familiar with CloudShare at all. Let me go ahead and point out exactly what this is, and then I'll show you what I'm going to give you. CloudShare is just a way to have your whole virtual machine online in the cloud. Okay, so I'm using a virtual machine right now, as you can see. I'm using it on my own server here, but the CloudShare machine is something that I can give you. I'll show you what it is. View in this window. It's a completely pre-built machine, which has all of my demo already built in here. So this has SharePoint Server Enterprise running, first of all. It has Microsoft Office, all the Microsoft Office products already running and already activated, actually, believe it or not. It's pretty cool how the licensing works out in here. And so it's got some SharePoint demos. Here's what you get. So if you follow the instructions that I'll give you later, you will be able to come to the screen. The way it's going to work is I'll give you a link. You can sign up with these folks, cloudshare.com, completely free for the first couple of days, and you can extend it for 14 days. And then after that, if you want to keep it, it's $49 a month. So, but if you don't want to keep it, that's fine too. Have it for a couple of days and then extend it for 14 more days, completely free. So you'll get this, right? you get a virtual machine like this, and it's going to say, all right, click here for demonstration of customizing SharePoint list forms using SharePoint Designer InfoPath. That's what we're doing right now. You click over here, and here we go. Here's what you will get. First of all, you'll get the same kind of stuff that I'm doing right now. You'll go tasks, form modified, and let's see. So list, items, edit item. See, now this is a little bit different formatting that I did in this one, but you'll see the complete demo already done. And then for tasks modified using InfoPath, this is something that I want to show you how you can do it. So that's still coming. All that stuff is completely built in. In addition, so wait, there's more. If you look at the instructions here on this site, it says you can actually watch the video for free also for this kind of stuff. So you can click on create custom list form pages using SharePoint Designer, and that's an actual video that we already have online, and it's completely free for you guys only. Yeah, and that's it basically. You can watch the whole thing just like that. You can't hear the audio right now, but it's there. Same thing for others as well, how you can modify it using InfoPath. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly what you can do to get to this environment. Remind me if I forget. Hopefully I won't forget. All right, moving back now to our slideshow. So the next thing I want to talk about is InfoPath stuff, right? How do you use InfoPath? What is InfoPath really, and how do you use it to modify your list forms and library forms for that matter? InfoPath came out back in 2003, extremely powerful application. InfoPath 2010 is very much put into the spotlight right now by Microsoft as the tool to use for making any kind of electronic forms. And I mean any kind of electronic forms, so with or without SharePoint. Of course, with SharePoint, the functionality is awesome, but you can use it without SharePoint. The way you do it is you have to have an InfoPath Form Designer application first, which is not free. So InfoPath Form Designer 2010 is not free, but if your organization has it, let's say through an Office suite, it comes with Office Professional Plus, it comes with Office Enterprise, Office Ultimate. If you have InfoPath Designer 2010, you can make your visual layout of the form, configure the form logic, make data connections as necessary, publish your forms directly in SharePoint if you wanted to. Here are a few touch points, the way InfoPath interacts with SharePoint. First is form library forms. So when you have form libraries in SharePoint, just like document libraries, the template for the form library will be the InfoPath form template. So you put it out there, you tell your users, hey, go to this library, fill out your form, fill out your expense report right there, and they can do that. The only licensing that's needed is SharePoint Foundation, and of course InfoPath Designer 2010. That's all you need. But there's a caveat. This is needed, InfoPath Designer and SharePoint Foundation is needed if you're okay with having your users fill out the form using InfoPath as well. If you want your users to fill out the form in the browser, then you need SharePoint Server Enterprise. A little bit confusing, I realize. You can also modify workflow forms using InfoPath. So when you have a workflow, there might be some user interaction, like here's a task, please fill out this task as a part of the workflow. That task form or the initiation form or some other kind of form can all be modified using InfoPath. We definitely have videos on how to do that as well, so check them out. For this, license needed is InfoPath, of course, and also SharePoint Server Standard. The last one, this is the one that I'm going to show you today. Excuse me. How do you create SharePoint list forms? Well, that requires SharePoint Server Enterprise functionality, no other way about it, and you need InfoPath Designer on your machine. This licensing, I think it's needed to clear up a little bit, and I know it's not clear right now, so I'm going to show you. This is a very popular post that we have on my blog over here that many people have found helpful. So if you go to the homepage of SharePointVideos.com, you go to the blog over here. This might help you. It's blog.sharepointelearning.com. I'll just take a second to get there. Once it's here, I'm doing a search on InfoPath licensing. Okay, InfoPath licensing. So here's a post about licensing requirements for InfoPath forms on SharePoint. You probably want to do a read-through on this thing to understand exactly how things work out, because it is kind of confusing, unfortunately. Okay. All right. Here's another thing that I'm going to show you. Well, actually, this is the thing. How do you modify list form using InfoPath 2010? So we'll talk about that. The last thing I'll also show you is how you can deploy the InfoPath form into a web part. That's brand new in 2010. We didn't have any functionality like that before. You could have done a workaround by showing the InfoPath form in a page viewer web part before, but now in this one you have an actual form web part that you can use to display your forms. Once again, this is also a SharePoint Server Enterprise functionality only. All right, we're done with slides. Let's get into the demo. Okay, so once again, you should be able to see my screen, the demo environment, and in here, this time I'll go to the browser, go to tasks modified using InfoPath. Both of these are just task lists. That's all they are. I've just renamed them. One is renamed task modified using SPD. The other one is renamed using task modified using InfoPath. All right. In here, because I have InfoPath Designer on my machine, which is right here, InfoPath Designer is part of Microsoft Office. Okay, well, some of the Office, not all the Office suites. So it's right there. Second thing, I am running SharePoint Server Enterprise, and because I have access to an enterprise environment, and because I have InfoPath Designer on my machine, I'm able to do the following, which is to go to the actual list, go to the List tab, and click on the Customize Form button. Okay, if you click on the Customize Form button, here's what happens. Okay, so the actual form, or well, the initial form, the way InfoPath sees it, opens up in InfoPath. Here's a caveat, by the way. I have noticed that sometimes, and there's a reason for that sometimes, this customized form may not work. If it doesn't, there's a blog post I have about that as well. You might want to check that out, of how you can fix that error. Okay, but that's the intended functionality. You click on the button and the form opens up. All right, let's do some modifications of this form, shall we? One thing to first note over here is that InfoPath environment is very much like a Microsoft Word environment. It's a lot less threatening than SharePoint Designer list modification. Not knocking SharePoint Designer in this case. I love SharePoint Designer. That's the reason we've written 2 books on SharePoint Designer, 2007 and 2010, and I do so much with SharePoint Designer, write white papers and everything else. So no offense to SharePoint Designer, it's an awesome application, but for list form modification, InfoPath is much better, and it's much easier to use, and dare I say, sometimes more powerful, sometimes. Here's what I'm going to do. First, I'll go up top, say Insert, Insert Picture, and I'm going to go into the same place, spvideos.jpg, insert that here. Okay? Right below that, I want my title to be there. So as you can assume, you just go ahead and drag it there. Just like that. Now this title row, no longer necessary, so I can say Table Tools Layout. Here I can say delete this row. Simple enough. Gone. Could do the same thing with attachments if I don't need it, but let me keep this one around. Now this text field that I have for title, let's make it so the actual text that renders in there is nice and big. So I'll click on Home tab, and I'll click on Calibrate, change that to Berlin Sans FB. That sounds good. Change the text to maybe 14, and maybe the text color will change that to dark green. Why not? Okay, so I'm just doing modification of the actual font within here, which will show at the runtime when I actually put something in there. Now, how about this? Remember due date? Now, I don't like due date being in the past. I don't know about you. It doesn't really make sense to me. So I'm going to put a rule here that, you know what, due dates can never be in the past. First of all, I don't know why this is so big, so I'm going to make this smaller. You could do the same thing for start date if you want, but I'll just do it for due date. I'm going to go click on add rule here. This is what's called quick rules. You quickly add a rule using this wizard. Here I'm going to say if it is in the future. That's the if statement. That's the condition. If it is in the future, do the following either action or formatting. In my case, what I'll do is I'll do show validation error. So that's going to be the action. Just like that, it made a rule for me automatically. Condition is due date is greater than now, and due date is now not blank. If these two conditions are true, it's a validation error, and it's going to say enter today's date or some date in the past. Perfect. Just like that. You can change the rule name too if you like. And there's so much you could do in InfoPath. I'm not going through all the rule stuff right now, but there's so much you can do with copying rules and pasting rules and manipulating rules, making new rules. Anyway, so that's the due date functionality. Now how about this stuff right here? Priority and status. First of all, once again, I don't like these being so big. And remember what I was trying to do before was I was trying to change the status background in SharePoint Designer, and it wouldn't let me do that. Well, in InfoPath, pretty easy to do so. I'll click on status, and first I'm going to go to Control Tools Properties up above, and I'll click on Edit Choices. Since it's a drop-down box, I know that there are some edit choices here, like not started, in progress, completed, deferred, waiting on someone else. Well, the first three ones, the not started, in progress, and completed, how about if I take these three choices and change the background color of the status field depending on the choice that's being picked. Not started could be red, in progress could be yellow, completed could be green. All right? Very simple to do that. Here's how we do it. So status, once again I'll click on add rules and say if it's equal to something, go ahead and change the formatting to this one, the pink background with the red color. Alright, perfect. Not started? Yes, let's make it bad. We'll put another rule here. You can put as many rules as you want. If it's equal to something else, make it good. And now I'm going to change the text here to say completed. Right? One more time, if it's equal to something, and I'll describe that something, make it yellow, and this time look for the words in progress. Great. So I want the status background to change. I want the due date to not be in the past. I want the title field to have nice formatting, and I want my picture up there, right? That's the kind of stuff that I want for this form. All set. Let me go ahead and click on File, and then here click on Quick Publish. See, it knows exactly which task list it came from, and it's going to go ahead and quickly publish it to it. Extremely simple. Okay, it takes a few seconds. And it's done. Form template was published successfully. You don't even need to refresh here. You just come back to your browser, click on Add New Item, and here we go. Okay, so task, let's just call it task 1. Status right now it's red. Let me change that to in progress, and now it's yellow. Change to completed, it's green. So perfect, the actions are firing, or the validation, or not validation, this is the formatting that's firing here. The validation is in due date, right? Click on that, and I'm going to say, let's make it on the 11th. Okay, so March 11th. Oh, you know what? I think I might have done it opposite, didn't I? Let me check again. Yeah, okay, so I did it the opposite way. I made it so if it's in the future, that's a problem. That's not right. Sorry. It's okay. That was intended. Not really. Yes. Okay, so you have a problem with the form, right? You need to republish the form. Here's how easy it is. You go back to InfoPath, go to due date, and see what's going on. Yeah, I was even reading this thing and I'm not even realizing this. Sorry. I can directly go to the condition here and say if due date is less than, there it is. If due date is less than Now my now has disappeared, right? This now, not a problem. We'll say use a formula, insert a function, and now. Okay, so that's the function that was already in play. I'm going to go ahead and put that back here. Here it is. So this way I got to show you how to do this manually. There's always a purpose to everything, isn't there? I'll click on either this small quick publish icon or the big quick publish icon, whichever. And it should go fine, hopefully. There we go. Pretty simple, pretty fast. Back in the browser, click on add new item. Let's go ahead and once again say task 1, status is in progress for due date. Try to make in the past. Enter today's date or date in. Yeah, okay, so one thing I forgot to change, and please forgive me for this right now, is the actual the wording. You gotta change that, but I'm just gonna do that. Here we go. Okay, all good. Great, some description also here, and we're all set. Save. Here it is. So that's all well and good, right? No problem with that, and this is the main way how you can change an InfoPath form. Now there's one other thing that I'm going to just talk to you about briefly. I will not get a chance to show you this, but you can see the result of it in that cloud share environment that I was telling you before. And here's what I'm talking about. See, when you click on add new item, you get this form, which is great. Yes, close the form. You click on the form here and you click on edit item. So now I want to edit this item. Here's an awesome thing that you get the same exact form. And if I click on the actual task here, once again for the display I get the same exact form. Some of you might be saying that's great because in one shot I've made the form, modified the form using using InfoPath, and it's given me the display, edit, new. Others are wondering, what if I want to have different fields and different way, look and feel of that stuff? How would I do that? For those of you, you can watch the video of it in SharePointVideos.com, okay? So you can check that out. Also in the cloud share environment, it's already been done. And I'm just going to quickly mention what it is that you're supposed to do. First, you go to InfoPath and you make different views of the form in InfoPath. Then you associate each view with the different action, like the new action, edit action, view action in SharePoint over here. And that's it basically. Once you do these two steps, which takes a little bit doing, then you're all set. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. What I do want to show you right now, let me actually add another task here first. I want to show you how you can utilize the InfoPath form web part. So I don't want to run out of time. I'm going to show you that right now. Imagine, well, hopefully you have SharePoint Server Enterprise running, otherwise you can't do any of this stuff. But if you have it running, here's what you do. Site actions, edit page, right? I'm going to edit this task list page, this task list view page, and I'll click on add a web part. Okay, the web part that I want to add is going to be under Forms directory, and it's called InfoPath Form Web Part. Once again, you don't have this web part. If you don't have it, then that means you don't have SharePoint Server Enterprise, or it means that your server administrator has taken this web part out of the web part gallery. That's one of the two reasons that you might not see it. I'm going to add it. Here it is. I'm going to move this from here to down here. Easy to do. And now I'm going to connect these two web parts together. Okay. So I'll go down here, this menu, and say let's connect and get the form for this web part from the tasks modified using InfoPath list. And that's it. That's how simple it is. And now let me go ahead and say, well, actually I'm already done with this page, so let me stop editing this page. And now when you come back to tasks modified using InfoPath, you actually have the form web part which shows the selected form. How cool is that? Let me go here, select, and now it shows me this one. Can I go and change stuff around here? Absolutely, because this is my edit form, right? So I can go and say task 4, save, Done. Just like that. See, now it's task 1 and it's task 4. See, very easy to do. Once you get used to it, all this stuff is extremely easy to do, and this is how you modify all that stuff, make it happen using InfoPath. Once again, be aware of the licensing. You need SharePoint Server Enterprise and you need InfoPath Designer to be able to do that. Of course, Enterprise and Designer, they both cost money. And SharePoint Designer is free, which also works great if you know how to use it, if you use it well. And then, of course, you could do that for SharePoint Foundation to be able to change the forms there. Okay. Now let me show you this cloud share thing and see if this makes sense for you. So see, the two things that I would like to give you is, one is the actual videos on how to make these things happen, right? What you just saw right now. Can you show me that again? Well, you're going to have, of course, a recording of this webinar. That's one thing that's going to come in 2-3 days. But even right now, you can get access to this cloud share environment. And from there, you can see the actual videos. You can see a link to the videos of how to make this happen. That's the first thing. Second thing, you see the actual end product. You see the actual thing running. And I think that's pretty beautiful to have that. Both of those things, you just get it for free. The cloud share, yes, after the 14 days trial is going to expire, but you have 14 days to play around with that and then decide if you want to keep it or not. The reason, by the way, that I'm pushing cloud share here is because it's a pretty awesome thing, and I have just learned to love this thing. You might as well, I think. So the way you get to this thing is by going to the following location. Let me do this. You go to tinyurl.com/AsifCloudShare. Okay, let me write that here as well. You want to take a note of this thing for the future if you need it. tinyurl.com/AsifCloudShare. That's what you need to make it all happen. Okay, tinyurl.com/AsifCloudShare. I'll have this in the last slide too, so I'll bring it up again. But once you go to this, it asks you to register. So it asks your username, well, email, first name, last name. They promise not to sell your email address to anybody else, which is pretty awesome. We do the same thing for our stuff. And they'll send you an invitation just after this, providing this information. That's all you got to provide. And you'll start your trial, basically. So the really cool thing, if you go with Asif Cloud Share thing, the information that I have put in my cloud environment, the demo that I have built, everything is going to be available to you just like that. Okay, so that's actually pretty awesome the way it is all configured. You go to tinyurl.com/cloudshare, you end up here, you provide the information, email, first name, last name, you sign up with them, and then just like that, what you receive is this machine. Okay, here's what you exactly get. You'll get to see something like this, and it will guide you through exactly what you need to do. But you click on View Machine, and just in your browser, you'll see the actual machine. And I'm going to click on this one to do a full screen. So it's a complete virtual machine running everything that you need. SQL, SharePoint, Workspace, Designer, InfoPath, everything's already built in over here. And if you don't see this screen, this is your desktop. Double click on the SharePointVideos.com demos, and the browser starts up. You read a small message that I have over here, and then you click here for demonstration of customizing SharePoint list forms using SharePoint Designer and InfoPath. And right here, the links to the videos, and also the links to the actual task lists. So you click on this, and there it is, a completely working example of what I just showed you. In fact, this has even more. So see, when I click on Add New Item, you see this form over here? This form is different than the other form. It says New Item Form, and it's got a different colors here. So I'm using a different form to show this. And if I click on the link itself, here we go. Here's a third form. It's also a different color, and it says Display Item Form. Okay, so you'll have a working example of how things work in here, all the stuff that I've shown you, and a whole lot more. I definitely think you should check it out. And you know what? This is the first time I'm doing this, by the way, and I just discovered CloudShare, folks, I think about a month and a half ago, and I love this product. So if this makes sense to you, and if you like this thing, you check it out, drop me a line, asif@sharepointelearning.com. My email address is also on sharepointvideos.com on the homepage. Let me know how things are working out for you, or if you have any complaints or issues, whatever. I would love to hear about this. Okay, so that's it basically. I wanted to show you that stuff. Hopefully this is helpful to you. Oops, that's not it. Here we go. Yeah, I can just minimize this, and here we go. Now it's running within the browser. So that's it. Let me give you also some suggestions here. Why would you want to use either one? You know, SharePoint Designer or InfoPath? Well, there's licensing considerations, of course. You want to be looking at that. Also, who's going to be modifying it? That's also important. So check that out. Make sure the right people are doing the right things here. And lastly, here are some things I recommend. First of all, you can watch the videos, lots of free videos on SharePointVideos.com. Second of all, here's a link, tinyurl.com/cloudshare to get access to the complete environment. And you know what? Pretty soon I'm going to have more stuff in this environment too. Here's a Twitter ID if you want to reach out to me. Also, you can sign up for the bi-monthly newsletter that comes out. It's actually bi-weekly now. But anyway, we send out information about our webinars and everything else. And really appreciate if you could fill out the survey. So thank you very much for attending. Let me go ahead and take some of your questions right now. See what you got over here. I'll be around for the next 10 minutes, and then we'll say our goodbyes. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so Mark, you have a question. When do you use SharePoint Designer? When do you use InfoPath? You know, so for this specific functionality, as I mentioned, if you got the money and if you're okay with licensing, then InfoPath is the way to go for less form modification. If you don't, then SharePoint Designer is the way to go. And other thing, of course, is the ease of use. InfoPath is much easier. Okay. Leo, you're asking, after a workflow is running, how can you get existing current item data into a workflow form? You know, I'm not going to be talking about workflow right now, Leo, so I'm going to have to skip this one. You can send that to me through email if you like. I try to respond to email as much as possible. I'm not always great at it, but you can send it to me if you like. Okay. If they coexist, are there any special considerations when downloading SharePoint Designer 2010 in order to avoid conflicts? Yeah, so the only thing that you want to make sure is you have SharePoint Designer 2007 32-bit, and then you download SharePoint Designer 2010 32-bit, and you should be fine. Angelica, you're saying we can't use SharePoint Designer on our production sites. What is the best way to use it local and then upload the production site? Well, if that is a restriction, you can package it up. SharePoint Designer will give you a Save as Template button on top. So look in the ribbon when SharePoint Designer opens up for a site, and you can template. You can make the whole site as a template, and then put it out on your production site. Go from there. Okay. And then you're asking, is it possible to make just a few changes in the list locally and then upload it to the server? You cannot do that, unfortunately. So if you want to make a few changes directly to a list or library, the recommendation actually is to go against directly your production with SharePoint Designer. I know a few of you are going to be like, what do you mean go to production? You can't go to production with SharePoint Designer. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can. I have lots of evidence and a lot of backup from Microsoft and other people to support that, other MVPs. It is definitely allowed. Of course, you want to be careful with what you do, but yes, you can go to production with SharePoint Designer. What permissions are required for using SharePoint Designer and InfoPath? You need to have site owner permission, Mark. Okay, then you can go to do any of these things. Let's see. Jason, you're asking, after complete edit task .aspx form, then in the future, if you want to add another field or column to the list, ooh, where did it go? I just lost that. Here we go. Will it add it to this custom form, or you have to go back and adjust it? So if you want to add some stuff, you can add it, but it won't add it automatically to the form. No, you would have to go and customize the form again, Jason. Let's see. Todd, you're asking again, how many enterprise licenses do I need? So how many enterprise licenses, Todd? You need everybody who's going to be actually viewing the form and filling out the form, that person needs an enterprise client access license. That's the way it works. Dennis, hey Dennis, good to see you again here. Our InfoPath Designer and Filler, 2 different installs. It's one install that you can do and installs both of them. It does require money to use both of these though, so now these things are free, unfortunately. Okay. Sundar, you're asking, are we subject to these being overwritten by an upgrade or service pack? So the kind of stuff I did with InfoPath, no, they will not be overwritten, period, for sure. The kind of stuff you do with SharePoint Designer, if you modify the existing form, yes, it is possible to be overwritten by upgrade, so you want to be careful. But otherwise, you're okay. If it's a new form, you're okay. Let's see. Greg, you're saying, Asif, could the save button be disabled if a validation rule returns false? Yes, you can. The save button, you know what you want to do, Greg, is instead of using the save button in the ribbon, you make a new save button, which is an actual button within the form, and then you can enable or disable the actual button, or maybe even the view or the display of the button. You can do that depending on the rule. Absolutely. Okay. Melody is saying bonjour, Asif. Bonjour, Melody. Can conditional rules be placed on form labels? Michael is asking. Can conditional rules be placed on form labels? The labels themselves, no, you can't. But you know what you can do is you can have an actual control, which could be a label control or a text box control, be shown as a label, and then you can change the formatting of that. You can do that. Shagun, you're saying, can we also add a search feature within the same page to search between the list? Between the e-list or, oh yeah, between the list. Yes, you can add search. I don't know if you've already ever used data view web parts, Shagun, and everybody else, but if you have used data view web part, you can use that to add controls and then add hookups from one control to another. And yes, I do have videos on SharePointVideos.com on how to do that, how you can hook up controls using data view, and how you can use a search functionality. Absolutely. Angelica, you're asking, can we download the presentation? You can see the presentation, like I mentioned before the webinar, in a couple of days. You can also go to this cloud share thing, and that's going to give you the complete thing right there and the link to the videos that are already online. Or you can wait a couple of days and I'll send you guys also a link to view this presentation. Gary, you're asking, can you change the date to display as you did in Designer? Can you change the date to display? Oh yeah, absolutely. So if I wanted to change the date to display, like, you know, Thursday, March 24th, 2011 instead of 3/24, absolutely. There is a way. That actually is in the formatting. So you go into the ribbon and you click on the formatting, and it's going to let you change the formatting of that. Okay, Vina is asking, can you change the end date to be larger than the begin date in SharePoint Designer? Yeah, so what you're asking, Vina, here is, can you do validation based on another form field, right? So instead of saying that in the past or in the future, you can say that it has to be after the start date. Absolutely, you can do that. And instead of you know, clicking or going for a formula like now, you actually select a field to do that. Once again, we have lots of videos of all this kind of functionality. Can you hide or gray out fields? Todd is asking. Yes, Todd, absolutely. You can hide fields, you can gray out fields, and all that stuff you would do using different action parameters, action rules in InfoPath. Can you make the conditional formatting show in the view? Can you make the conditional formatting show in the view? Adam is asking. Yes, Adam, you can do that. So even if it's a view of the form, the conditional formatting could show up if you wanted to. Steve, can you pull data from other SharePoint lists into InfoPath form? Absolutely. That's actually pretty easy to do. Once again, we have videos on showing you how to do that. We might even have a webinar recording for free out there that you can watch to see that as well, how you can pull data from SharePoint list into InfoPath form. That would be under Introduction to InfoPath stuff, or InfoPath, or the data connections for InfoPath basically. You can do that from SharePoint list, libraries, web services, databases. We have videos showing every one of these scenarios. Ritual, you're asking, can you pull data through InfoPath from a database? Yep. As I was saying, yep, you can do that. And Ritual, you're asking about the slide deck. I'm sorry, once again, the slide deck itself, which was only a few slides, that I cannot share or send you, but you will have the slides. You'll be seeing it in the webinar, the recorded webinar. Let's see. Angelica, you're saying, can you submit data to more than one list? Yes, you can submit data to one list, to 5 lists, to 15 lists, whatever you want to do. You can even submit it to lists and libraries or through web service. The trick to doing this, Angelica, is by using rules, an action rule, to submit data, and then making different actions within the rule to do all these things. Absolutely. Can you use SharePoint Designer 2010 for Office 2007? Carrie, you're asking. So SharePoint Designer 2010 is really not part of Office. If you have Office 2007 on your machine and you need SharePoint Designer 2010, yes, you can have them coexist. Absolutely. Download it, it'll be fine. Okay. Sundar, you're asking, confused on which form we're editing using InfoPath. Asif was very clear using Designer, which form we were modifying, but not clear here. So you see, I think I made that clear afterwards, is that when you were modifying, it was modifying all the forms, Sundar, not just edit or new. Could you clarify difference functionality between InfoPath form for a SharePoint list versus a SharePoint library? Dawn is asking. Well, see, in a SharePoint library, you do have edit form, right? Because you can edit the metadata of a form. I'm sorry, of a document, let's say, right? So the metadata of the form, like what department or region or location, whatever kind of metadata there is for a document, a document library, that form you can modify, yes. The display form also you can modify, which shows you all the information. The only form that's really different is the new form, because there is really no new form for a library. When you click on new, it opens up the template of the document, like a Word, Excel, PowerPoint, right? So of course you can't modify that. And there's also the upload form. When you click on upload, it gives you the upload exe or the upload functionality basically, and that lets you upload a form. So that you cannot modify. But edit, display, no problem in the library. Let's see, we have Dennis. Dennis, you're asking, we only got a couple of minutes here, folks, now, how easy it is to use InfoPath 2010 on InfoPath 2007 form templates. You can definitely use, Dennis, InfoPath 2010 for 2007 stuff. Usually I recommend that you go and use InfoPath 2007 for InfoPath for SharePoint 2007, because it's clear cut. Because sometimes what's going to happen is you use InfoPath 2010 and you're going to assume that some of this functionality will be available when you publish the form, but unless you've used a design checker to make sure if this functionality is supported or not, and in SharePoint 2007, you will be disappointed. So I usually say that use InfoPath 2007 for 2007 and use InfoPath 2010 for SharePoint 2010. That's my recommendation. Hermine, you're saying you're late. Will there be a on-demand recording? Yes, there will be on-demand recording afterwards. No problem. Let's see. How to migrate custom InfoPath form for a SharePoint list from dev to prod environment? Mukesh is asking. See, once again, yes, there is a possibility you can take InfoPath forms and you can package them in a solution using Visual Studio. Yes, that is a possibility. You could do that. But the stuff that I'm showing you right now, you can do it directly in production also. I know that many companies don't like that, but you know what? That's the new reality. So I'm sorry, but yes, that's the way to do it. But yes, you can package it, but you got to go through the code way to make that happen. If you want to package it from your development environment to integration testing to staging to production, the old-fashioned way, or still the way, of course, to do it, but the traditional development way, I should say. One more question, folks. Dave, you're asking, I've heard that the Moss list forms modified SharePoint Designer do not work correctly when migrating to 2010. using the database attach method. I am not sure who you heard that from, Dave, but from what I've seen, those things do come over fine. If there is an issue, I would recommend just uncustomizing your form. There's a way to uncustomize pages, and then that should fix the issue, but then of course you have to re-customize it as necessary. I have not heard that there have been any major issues on that though. Okay, so I'm sorry folks, I know there's much more questions here, but that's all I can take right now. It's 1:17 p.m. Central, so that's 2:17 p.m. Eastern. We'll let you go here, but once again, CloudShare, check that out if you want. Also check out SharePoint-videos.com. Check out all of our stuff there if it makes sense to you. Here we go. So SharePointVideos.com, go to free videos, and there's a lot of free videos out here. This will help you. If you have any questions, let us know. If it makes sense to you, then subscribe. And also let us know if you have a need for corporate licensing. I can help you, or our salespeople can help you get things squared away to see if it works out for your SharePoint users. Okay, so until next time, have a great day. Take care, and once again, thank you very much for joining. I will send another email out, another newsletter out to tell you exactly where the recording for this webinar is in a couple of days or a few days. Take care. Talk to you soon.